I also rise, Mr. Speaker, in support of dreamers, farm workers, and families. Much has been said about the immigration issues at the border. And I think what has not been said is the fact that we all want to make sure that the border is more secure. There's no disagreement in that. We can work together to make the border safer. Safer for children, for families, for women, for grandparents, and for the communities, the border communities that many of our members and colleagues represent. And we should work together to make sure that the border is safer. However, Mr. Speaker, there is a reality in the nation, and that is that dreamers are young people that are teachers, nurses. They're part of our communities. They own their homes. Many of them have their own businesses. And yet, they haven't been given the opportunity to be full part of America. Dreamers have been, on the average, in the United States for about 20 years. They lived here. And many of them pay taxes. They haven't committed any crimes. They play by the rules. They stay within the parameters of the law. But yet we have failed to allow them to be fully part of this American experience. And we should work very hard to ensure that dreamers are given that opportunity. In fact, 80% of Americans feel that dreamers should be given that opportunity. Farm workers, Mr. Speaker, we all know many of them are not going to work because they're afraid they're going to be deported. In fact, 40% of farm workers are undocumented, and they're not showing up at the farms. That will show up at our cash register. That will show up at our dinner table. So farmers are also a sector of the immigrant community that we should help. Prices will come down, they'll be able to go to work, and we'll get greater goods in our houses, in our grocery stores, in our supermarkets. So dreamers and farmers are an important part of the immigration equation that often are left out. You would think that the only part of the immigration debate is the border, and we all agree that the border should be safer. Finally, Mr. Speaker, families. Families should be kept together. And the average immigrant family has been here in the country for over 10 years. Families, if they're divided, if a young boy or a young girl are taken away from his or her mother, that family will be weaker, and as such, our nation will be weaker. The equation is simple. Weak families make a weak nation. Separated families become weak families, and as such, make a weak nation. So dreamers, farm workers, and keeping families together are an important and central part of the immigration debate, which is a very broad debate that includes other topics. But we all agree that the border should be safer. How is it that we cannot agree, come to a consensus that dreamers, farm workers are important, and that families must be kept together?
Gentleman's time
With
has
that,
expired.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you, and I yield back the remaining part of my time.
The chair now recognizes the member from Pennsylvania, Representative Thompson, for 5 minutes.